We all know the situation. 5 straight losses for Michigan State. They've looked lifeless in a few of those games, and yet, in a much needed game for the Spartans and Jonathan Smith, they actually do have a path at victory. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. It's Mazda, move and be moved. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, how on earth are we all doing? Thank you so much for making us part of your game week routine. If you're still watching these games, right? And of course you are. If you're watching this show, I assume that you'll be tuning in 3:30 on Big Ten Network to see our Spartans take on the Minnesota Gophers in a game that Michigan State could win here. We're going to talk about that right off the rip here in segments 1. And then, guys, in segments 2 and 3, we are joined by Justin Gard of the Gopher Radio Network. Get a deeper dive into that Minnesota team over there. But before we get into it, please rate, review, subscribe, comment below if you believe Michigan State can win this game, because I'll tell you what, the first way I thought that it actually could be a reason here isn't anything that goes on in the field. It's something that's not in the locker rooms. It's not even in the fan bases. It's over there in the desert in Vegas. And I'm not going to make this entire show or even more than a minute or two of this all about gambling. But my eyebrows arched up when I saw that, first of all, the spread opened up at 4.5. Michigan State just being a 4.5-point underdog, which, if you've watched this team the last month and a half of the year and against any road opponent in the conference, I just assumed they would be 8, 9-point underdogs. But it's not just the fact that they opened up as 4.5-point dogs. Guys, they're just getting 35% of the bets, yet it moved from 4.5 points to 3.5 points. So this is a long way of saying that the sharp bettors, the professional bettors, the guys with a lot of money, they're betting in the minority, but with the majority of the money. Sharps love Michigan State, but why? Let's try to figure out why Michigan State could have a fighting chance in this game and potentially save Jonathan Smith's job for at least another week, if not maybe until the end of the season. I don't know. There are reasons to believe here, and look, some of you gotta squint, right? You can maybe talk yourself into, despite Minnesota's defense on paper being better than Michigan State's offense. Yeah, Minnesota, they do have 84 missed tackles, and we've talked week in and week out about the Michigan State tackling issue on our own defense, right? Minnesota has 3 more missed tackles on the season than Michigan State does. So it's not just a problem in East Lansing. It's a problem also over in Minneapolis. But also, you got Minnesota's offense versus Michigan State's defense. And I know that Michigan State's defense, whether it's passing, whether it's against the run, it doesn't matter. They haven't been inspiring a lot of confidence lately. But Minnesota's offense, their passing game's been struggling as of late. Their star running back, Darius Taylor, most likely will be out for this game. Now, PJ Fleck was a little mum on his injury status. He just played 3 snaps last week against Iowa, missed some time earlier this season. But as you'll learn from our conversation coming up with Justin Gard, guy a little more connected to Minnesota, not really high expectation for him to play. So Minnesota, yes, they are going to go up against a Michigan State run defense that has been looking just terrible lately. Well, Minnesota's run game is pedestrian, so maybe there's something to give there. But what I think the biggest key to this game, whether it's, individual matchups, whether it's unit matchups, I'm going to go with a unit matchup here. The key to the game is going to be Minnesota's pass offense against Michigan State's pass defense. Now, this isn't like a Goliath versus Goliath matchup right now. No, this is a stoppable object against a very incredibly movable force. These are 2 weaknesses in both of these teams, but someone's going to turn into titanium by the end of this afternoon on Saturday in Minneapolis here. So let's talk about Minnesota's pass game here for a little bit. Quarterbacked by redshirt freshman Drake Lindsey, who not all fault falls on the quarterback, right? But here is what he's done the 4 games in October. He's had 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions combined over the 4 games in October. Just one of those games in October went for over 200 yards passing. Just one game, he's passed for over 60% completion, and that was 80% actually in the win on Friday night against Nebraska. If you were like me and watched that game, he was concise, he was confident, he looked fine. I don't think it's just a Drake Lindsey problem, but look, this unit for Minnesota, they rank near the bottom in the Big Ten in explosive passing plays in the conference. You know, passing plays that go for 10-plus yards, 20-plus yards, what have you. And whether you watch them, whether it's like that Fox Friday night game from the other week, or whether it's a Big Ten Network game you stumble upon, or even if you just look at the roster here, they don't have a lot of receivers that strike fear in you. Right? Like, they don't have a single guy that's over 400 yards receiving for the season. They don't have anyone in their top 3 receivers that are taller than 6'1". It's not like anyone's physically imposing, just bullying themselves to the football. When I think great skill position players, for Minnesota, I think Darius Taylor, who might miss this game, and I don't really think of any of their receivers, but this could all blow up in my face because we got to look at the other side here. We got to look at Michigan State's pass defense because, sure, great outing from them last Saturday, right? Yeah, they still got the doors blown off them on the scoreboard against Michigan, but hey, they made Bryce Underwood look pretty, not even standard, kind of below average in the passing game, right? And it's not just the corners, the secondary, the safeties. It was also that front line. They generated 15 pressures on the quarterback, which, God, you know this. You haven't seen that a lot here in East Lansing, not just the last few weeks, but the last few years. So, yeah, Michigan State, while they were better last week, they're still bottom third in the conference in generating pressures, in getting sacks, and they are well into the bottom third at allowing explosive passing plays. So, again, very stoppable object in Minnesota's pass offense versus a very movable force in Michigan State's pass defense. So someone's cream is going to rise to the top here, and that could very well be the difference in this game. Can Michigan State get them off the field, get them off schedule, get them into 3rd and longs? Just every cliche in the book, throw it out there. Because there is a world where Michigan State stops the run game. That's how battered and bruised it's been for Minnesota. Their offensive line has just been this year as well. Do I expect the world out of Michigan State on offense, whether they start Aiden Childs, whether they start Alessio Milivojevic? No, because I've seen too much at this point. But, hey, if Michigan State's going to win, they got to do it ugly. Right, guys? Now, other notes for this game. These are going to be 2 very important injury notes for Michigan State. Now, fortunately, we don't have much of an update here because Jordan Hall, of course, left the game last week with an injury. Shout out to the Big Ten refs because, well, they had to play another snap after that brilliantly timed jump of the snap by Malcolm Bell, which led to a Michigan turnover, except, oh, wait a minute. No, that's right. We're actually going to throw a flag there. Let's do one more play. Jordan Hall exits after an injury thanks to Big Ten officiating. Well done, guys. Well done, Stripes. Anyway, game time decision coming up for him. And then Stanton Ramil, you're ideally starting left tackle. He just played 18 snaps last week. We all know that he's missed the last few weeks leading up to that game due to, I believe, a leg injury. He's going to be a game time decision as well. So, Jonathan Smith, not much of an update, just game time decision for those guys. And, you know, the storyline going into this one, you've heard me say it a few times, not just last week, but like the last 3 weeks now at this point. If you lose this game, I think that this is going to be the time that we bid farewell to Jonathan Smith. And this isn't me talking to people in the program. This has just been a hunch that I've been going off of the last few weeks. I think that largely it is because, well, that'd be the frustration if you lose 6 straight of. Well, that's pretty upsetting. That's pretty unacceptable. But also you get the bye week too on Sunday. You get to reshuffle the deck chairs to see how you're going to finish this season and taking 2 weeks to do so before you got to face a Penn State team. So we all know what's at stake here for Michigan State, for this coaching staff. Now let's find out what's at stake for Minnesota here. Let's talk with our guy, Justin Gard, that was an awesome conversation. Really hope you guys stick around for that one. But first, guys, you need to talk your ears off about Mazda. That is right, guys. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game. It's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. And I got to say, this segment gets harder every week because they want us to pull out like a player a moment that was really great from the week prior. And when you lose 5 straight games, that's a little difficult, but I'll tell you what, even off of a 4-game losing streak, I'm going to give this one to the crowd. Whether it was watching on TV like I did, the crowd looked electric. It was just primarily Michigan State fans. I know that every year it's a whole to-do. Oh, it's going to be a maze out here. No, it never is like that. And just from talking with people at the game, the atmosphere was electric. So we're going to give this one to the fans here that are still packing Spartan Stadium with passion, energy, and drive. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. It's Mazda, move and be moved. Also, gang, look your best with Alumni Hall, because they are going to hook you up with the best gear, the tailgate equipment, whatever you need. Alumni Hall has the largest selection of officially licensed gear. We're talking the top brands like Nike, Columbia, Champion, Yeti, New Era, so much more, guys. They have apparel for the entire family. We're talking kids, adults, plus a huge selection of hats, gifts, and all the tailgating gear you could need to make your setup the best in the lots this season. And they're taking care of the Spartan community. Spartan students, Spartan faculty, as well as military and all first responders get 10% off with a valid ID in the store. Also, guys, follow them on social media. Download the Alumni Hall app because you will find more specials and offers there. So pop into Alumni Hall in the Eastwood Town Center in Lansing near the Apple Store, or shop online or through their app. And best part is, for every $150 you spend, you will get $10 in hall cash to use for the next time. So don't wait any longer, guys. Grab that new game day look or upgrade your tailgate with Alumni Hall, your ultimate Michigan State shopping destination. You want to know about the Gophers? Well, look no further than Justin Guard of the Gopher Radio Network. He's going to break down all things Minnesota, guys. And look, we all know the story for Michigan State over here. Michigan State loses. This is going to be one step closer to the inevitable end of the Jonathan Smith era, it really seems like. But I always like doing this when we face an opponent, talk to someone on their side. What are the stakes for your game coming up right here, Justin? Sitting at 5-3 this season. Really good win against Nebraska 2 weeks ago. Then not such a great performance against Iowa. What would a win or a loss do for your Gophers right now?
Well, I think a win would stabilize things a little bit. You mentioned the last 2 weeks, and it's kind of a microcosm, Matt, of the season for the Gophers in a lot of different ways. They've been up, they've been down, they've been great, they've been brutal, and that's the last 2 weeks. You know, the Friday night game against Nebraska, you're thinking about, wow, that was an unbelievable performance. 9 sacks for the defense. The offense finally ran the ball. Pretty dominant effort. Friday night on Fox, I think it was pretty much a standalone game. The entire country saw it. Things look good. Matt Rule's not going to Penn State anymore. Why would they hire him? And then so you go into Kinnick Stadium, and you think this is going to be an interesting one. You've got 2 teams that should feel pretty good about themselves. Iowa had just knocked off Penn State at home the Saturday night prior. You've got, on the Gopher side, Drake Lindsey, maybe the best quarterback they've had here in the PJ Fleck era. At least that's what he could become. Let's see how he does in a place that's a house of horrors for a lot of different opponents, right? So there's a lot of excitement going into Saturday's game. And within basically 15, 20 minutes of real time, that excitement was gone. Yeah. So it was very deflating, obviously, a week ago. And so a win would kind of stabilize things again. They've been very good at home this season. The home schedule was seen before the season as very favorable, right? Sure. Some easier games, quote unquote, and then a lot of toss-up games. But most of their difficult games, Ohio State, Cal, obviously Oregon in a few weeks, Iowa, those were all on the road. So you thought they could do some things here in the home schedule. So a win would stabilize things. A loss, I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it would be really disappointing. It'd be really devastating. It would be a missed opportunity to kind of get things back on the right track before a bye week. So it's an important game, I think, for a lot of reasons for Minnesota. To get this season back on track is probably too strong, but at least towards a trajectory of what we thought was going to be a pretty decent bowl game.
Find some stability because, not to talk down about my own team, which is what I've been doing the last 2-3 weeks nonstop. Like, you don't want to lose to a team that's coming into your stadium that has just dropped 5 straight games. Like, that can't be great for the vibes around a program. But I want to keep it with a player here that you just talked about. Now, this is Drake Lindsey, and I just burnt the whole first segment talking about this could be the big key to the game. Minnesota's pass offense versus Michigan State's pass defense. Which one is going to come ahead here in the midst of their, struggling seasons? Is that fair to say with Drake Lindsey, especially the last month of the year? Or are you guys pretty happy with what you've seen out of your quarterback so far?
I think of all the offensive issues, I don't even know if I'd put the quarterback in the top 5 or 6.
Okay.
I think he's been as advertised. And going into the season, if you remember last year, the Gophers had a 1-year transfer, kind of the Mark Gronowski of last season, Max Brosmer, who's now with the Minnesota Vikings as an undrafted rookie free agent and he's backup quarterback to JJ. So people would ask me all summer, what do you think about Drake Lindsey? And I'd say, well, I don't know a lot about him. He's played like 5 snaps. Yep. But I do know that he was basically we called it the Max Brosmer cocoon a year ago. He was basically just following Max around. And Max is a stud. Even though he was here for 1 year, everybody around the program, everybody in Minnesota, he just kind of captured everybody. So I said he's been in the Brosmer cocoon. And in 2025, you don't have to turn over your program to a redshirt freshman quarterback if you don't want to, right? You can go find somebody in the portal. Right. You can go bring somebody in. If you're doing this, it's because you believe in him. You either believe in him right now or you believe in him in the future. And with the Gophers, I think it's both. They were really excited to get him coming out of Arkansas. A lot of people down there are surprised he got out of Arkansas, given he's got all this family lineage and family history. They're big boosters. His sister goes there. They pretty much whiffed on it. They pretty much missed on it. And I think he's been extremely good. I think he's been outstanding. The offensive line has been the issue here. I think pretty much all season they have not found – they've played the same 5 guys, Matt, but just in 5 different positions a lot of different times. They had some guys to replace. They lost their right guard to Ohio State. He was an Ohio kid. So when that happens, that's tough. And if you can't block anybody, that makes everything difficult, right? And so that's been issue number 1. They haven't been able to run the ball very well because of that. And that's issue number 2, even going into this game. The unavailability of Darius Taylor, who's a Michigan kid who's here, obviously, and is probably their best offensive player. I won't say most important because I think that's Drake, but he's right up there with them. And he wasn't available a week ago against Iowa. He missed some time earlier in the season. Their backup running back, AJ Turner, who they brought from Western Michigan, was supposed to be kind of the complement. He's out for the season. So they're down to a redshirt freshman running back and a grad senior from Washington. Those are your running backs now. So Drake, I think, has been as advertised. I think multiple times in coming back against Rutgers, coming back against Purdue, just how he played in general against Nebraska. Drake has been outstanding. I wouldn't put him anywhere near the top of the concern list, but as you heard, I just mentioned about 4 or 5 that you just don't know which Gophers team is going to show up in that regard maybe all the time.
I get it. Compounding factors like lack of blocking, which Michigan State fans know all too well, can impact the health of the whole offense. So speaking of health, though, and I'm glad you just touched on it, Darius Taylor. I mean, he was Mr. Everything for Minnesota last year. Very talented kid out of the state of Michigan, of course. But, yeah, I think it was 3 snaps, 1 carry last week. You don't suspect that he will play this week. How big is that drop-off then? Which sounds like a stupid question because you're out your second-string running back too. Is it just off a cliff when it goes from a guy like Darius Taylor to whoever's now running the rock?
Well, I know they like Femi Ijiboy is the running back who's getting it now, and he's young. And they definitely like him, but he's young. And so there's going to be some growing pains there. And Taylor's really good. So it's one of those things where he's also extremely good in the passing game, which has helped Drake throughout the year. It helped Max Brosmer a year ago as just kind of that check down. We're all familiar with Kirk Cousins here, Michigan State, Minnesota over here. Kirk
favorite athlete of all time. Yep,
great dude, favorite. Right? Yep. But loves the check down, right? Like loves a good running back. Like, if there's a running back to throw it to, love it. And Darius Taylor caught 50 balls a year ago. That's the most that a running back has caught here in a really long time. I want to say 2-3 decades. So he provides that aspect of it as well. He's not just a good runner, and he played high school receiver until his senior year. Then he was a running back. So he's got both skill sets. So that's where it's kind of the double whammy when he gets hurt and he's not available. And even going into Iowa last week, I thought he'd be a big part of what they tried to do just because you're going to need the check down against Iowa, as we all know. They're not going to let you throw it deep all the time. And so that's where the problem is when he's not available. It's not just because he's a great running back. It's because he's a weapon out of the backfield as well. And they just haven't had – it's hard to replicate. It's hard to duplicate, I guess is the best way to say it when he's not available.
All right, guys, still plenty more to come. But, hey, you know what? It's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most, so let's break it down. We're going to go with the quarterback here, but one that we haven't talked a lot about this season, Alessio Milivojevic, because he's gotten some mop-up duty late in these games, and, all kidding aside, kids look sharp. 3 touchdown passes in the last 4 games, especially this last one against Michigan. And hey, if you're a Michigan State bettor, if you are an over bettor, well, yeah, you really think that he delivered for you. So, guys, just like Alessio Milivojevic is delivering when it is his time on the field, yeah, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season long, and you could save up to $250. That is including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day, but only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Also, guys, FanDuel, you're about to hear me talk about my 5 best bets, and Lordy, was that a trip last week. But Michigan State, at the time of recording, plus 3.5-point underdogs on the road at Minnesota. If you like the Gophers in this game, go ahead, lay the points. If you like our Spartans, take the points. Or focus on NBA because, yes, that season is back, and there's no better way to get in on all the action of a FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has the live bets on everything from who's going to score next, the fourth quarter comebacks, whatever it is, guys, you name it. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So what are you waiting for? Head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Flipping sides of the field, I mean, certainly, if from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like the defense has been the issue whatsoever for Minnesota. Obviously, gave up a lot of points to Iowa, Ohio State, as every team does these days. But overall, I mean, boy, especially when you look at that front, second in the conference in sacks, second in the conference in tackles for loss. Is it a 1-2-man wrecking crew? Is it a complete unit playing in harmony? Like, what has been the reason for the success on that front for the defense?
I'd say it depends on the day.
Okay.
Because I think they've been kind of Jekyll-and-Hyde too. They've been kind of inconsistent as well,
Gotcha.
Even within games. I think about the Rutgers game. The old Gopher quarterback, Ethan Kelly-McManus, came in, marched them straight down for 2 touchdowns. They're down 14-0. But then they start figuring it out. They unlock some pressures. They get going a little bit. Obviously, Nebraska was, an unbelievable performance, and just the 9 sacks. That's a program record going back to at least 1977. But they have good players at each level. Like Anthony Smith is somebody that you'll probably hear a lot of if you're watching on TV. Number 0. He's from Pennsylvania. He's probably a 1st or 2nd round draft pick, which don't come around here on the defensive line very often. They had Boye Mafe a few years ago. He's a 2nd round pick. I think Anthony Smith is better. And so he's been very good. They have some experienced linebackers that have kind of been through the program, in Maverick Baranowski and Devin Williams, that they've kind of, go for linebacker play since I've been doing this. This is year 15, has been pretty good. They've still got some guys kind of in the NFL in that regard. And these 2, I think, are right up there with them. And then everybody talks about their safeties. And the name that is probably most familiar to people is Coy Parrish, who was an All-American a year ago, first team All-Big Ten, had 5 interceptions. He hasn't had the numbers so far this year that he had a year ago. He just has the 1 pick, but it was a pick 6 against Purdue that basically flipped the game late and won the game for the Gophers ostensibly. So I think some of it, Kerry Brown's another guy, number 14, that people are going to want to pay attention to. They've got kind of good dudes at all levels, but at the same time, even within games, you've seen like the Cal game, they couldn't stop the freshman quarterback. Then they stopped him for a while. Then all of a sudden Cal starts running the ball. Like they just haven't consistently put it together enough. And I think that's why you've seen kind of the Jekyll-and-Hyde 5-3, really good at home, not so good on the road. So they need a response too, because as crazy as that Iowa game got early with the pick 6 and the punt return, Iowa came right out of the gate and scored a touchdown on a long drive. Right. So, and then the defense never really got their teeth into it. So they've got a lot of playmakers, and we'll see if they're ready to go on Saturday.
And Coy Parrish, a guy that you just mentioned, of course, he was Mr. Everything on defense. You talk about Darius Taylor being everything on offense. This guy was incredible on the scene early for Minnesota. Like you said, numbers aren't there, but that could be a fickle thing when it comes to interceptions. Point blank, like, is this the encore performance to last season that you expected out of him so far, or is there a little bit more juice that you want to see squeezed out of that orange?
I think there's more to be squeezed for sure.
Okay.
I think, and he would say that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that's saying anything out of turn. And some of that is, people are going to know where he is right after what he did a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that I know PJ Fleck has done here is he's talked about to the team players that have had great freshman seasons in the Big Ten. And one of the examples he had was George Karlaftis from Purdue, who to this day is still, from my view on the sideline, I don't know football all that well, Matt, but it was hilarious. Their bit was, they literally triple teamed him like every play. A few
you
years
have to, right?
and we're not going to let this guy ruin the game. So like that stuff happens when you are number one on the scouting report, right? So the point of the whole thing was your stats might not be the same as your freshman year when you come in and nobody knows who you are except for what they read on Rivals or 247. And you're not going to get this. You're going to get more respect. You're going to get more attention, and the numbers might not be there. You can still make an impact. So I think that's what happened a little bit. They tried him out on offense. That was the big offseason thing that people may remember. They wanted him to play.
Yeah.
He played offense the first few games, and he was also a kick returner and punt returner. So they were having him do everything, and he literally wouldn't sit down for games. He would just stand on the sideline, and he was never on the bench. He was always just kind of with the group. And after the Cal game, where he had probably the worst game of his career, fumbled a punt, fielded a punt inside the 5. They just decided to dial everything back and say, let's focus on playing great defense. That's what you're here to do. Maybe we can sprinkle that other stuff in. He's obviously still the returner, but we're going to put the offense to the side for a while. So I don't think he's been as impactful in the numbers as he was last year. It would have been hard to duplicate that. But he's still obviously a major part of their D. I mentioned the pick 6 earlier. If they're going to have success, he's going to be a big part of it defensively.
And a lot of the talk on Locked On Spartans here has been coaching search, who's going to be the next guy for Michigan State, which is ironic because our guy is still gainfully employed, still receiving paychecks. And for now, he's still here, but that hasn't stopped us from doing the whole coaching topic. But from your guys' point of view, because PJ Fleck is in season number 9, and if I'm not mistaken, his name is thrown around for the last 9 years in coaching cycles. Does that get old? Does that get tiring? Do you think he's here for the long haul? Just bring me inside of the mind of a Gopher fan.
Sure.
When every single coaching cycle, PJ Fleck finds a way to get his name in that cycle somewhere.
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, it's 2025, so nothing in college sports should surprise anybody anymore.
Of course.
That's
right.
like the ultimate disclaimer, because you can have this old opinion, but it's 2025. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I will say that he's got a great, like you said, his name has come up almost every year.
Every time.
Some job, right?
Every time.
It's always one of the 5. And I think that's because he's done a good job here, right? People don't, and you can speak to this. People don't think of Minnesota as some type of destination, right?
Totally agree. Yeah, but he is sneaky building you guys into one of the more steady programs in the Big Ten. It's impressive.
Yeah, really consistent, right?
Yeah.
And when 7-5, 8-4 is seen as like a bad thing around here, it hasn't always been the case, right? So he's definitely raised the floor, and consistency, I think, is the big thing. So it's from the outside, it's always very easy to go, well, the Minnesota coach must hate it there in Minnesota. It's cold, it sucks, they're never any good. He's definitely going to leave. So that part of it kind of gets old because he is here in year 9, and for 9 years you've heard that he's going to go somewhere else. And there have been serious overtures from other programs for sure, and he's definitely maximized that interest in the form of contract extensions, like every
has. That's right.
Like every other coach has, right? So, in terms, I think when he says a phrase that Gopher fans hear all the time is cultural sustainability, because that's what the Gopher rivals, and that's just a good way of saying continuity. It's a PJ way of saying continuity. Yeah. And you look at the 2 teams that they compare themselves to, Wisconsin and Iowa. Iowa's had 2 football coaches since 1978, right? And Kirk Ferentz was on the Hayden Fry staff. So for 50 years, Iowa fans have known what they're getting. Wisconsin, until recently, had 30 years of knowing what they were getting.
Yep.
Minnesota had just never had that. So I do think he believes in that. I do think he sees it as important to have the head coach there and most of the staff. I know, obviously, Joe Rossi's with you guys now, and that's one of the surprising things, because Joe Rossi, to me, was the most important decision PJ made here in 2018, was firing the old coordinator and instilling Joe. I think he's a great coach, and the defensive struggles have been surprising from my side of the river here. So to answer your question, it does come up every year. He's got a great relationship with the guy that hired him, Mark Coyle, who's still the AD here. I know he likes living here. And now, we mentioned Coy Parrish, we mentioned Darius Taylor. He's gotten the number 1. Darius is from Michigan, but he's recruited, the last 4 top players in Minnesota, recruiting wise, have committed here or they're here now. Jackson Howard's another one who went to LSU. And so I guess my point is the roots are here, right? He's built it to a solid place that I do think he wants to see it through. Now, does that mean that he's going to be here on January 10th? I have no idea, because who knows how the rest of the season is going to go. Yeah, his name's going to be mentioned. I'm sure he's probably trying to get another extension and more money for his assistants, because that's what all these guys want. And part of the reason Joe Rossi's at Michigan State right now is because they could pay him a lot more, right?
Yep.
So I hope that answered your question. I think it's just kind of a fact of life when you are at a place historically like Minnesota that is not seen as some type of destination that people are going to throw. And a guy who's been here a long time too, that says, hey, maybe he's ready for something different. His name gets thrown around, but it's not, I guess we don't obsess about it as much as maybe you did in 2019, when they go to the Outback Bowl and have the best year in a really long time. Is this going to be a comet and we're back to square one? That was 6 years ago and he's still here. And they're still, really consistently turning out wins. So again, where I started, we'll see what happens. Nothing would surprise me, but I would bet on him being here for whatever the long term is.
I like the mentality. I mean, in this year of our lore 2025 for college football fandom, it's just, we'll see. It is what it is. Like we'll cross that bridge whenever that day comes, and maybe even whenever that hour comes. It's ever fluid situation here. Well, Justin, this has been awesome. Can't thank you enough, guys. Justin Gard of the Gopher Radio Network. Awesome chat. Hope you really appreciate Saturday. Outside the hours of like 3:30 to 7 ideally, but because we could use a win over here, Justin. But hey, really appreciate your time, your insight. And guys, we're going to be back in a hot second because, end of the week, you already know it. 5 best bets. We're going to try to turn this wagon around. That's right. Yep, it happened again. It happened again. It happened again. This is the best way to face it. Just head on, accept your faults, take responsibility, accountability, because for the second time this season, we were imperfect. We went 0-5 in 5 best bets. Guys, that's going to bring us down to almost an insurmountable 18-27 overall record on this season. Now, some of them are close, right? Like we took under in the Michigan State game last week. So great touchdown pass to Alessio Milivojevic. That just made this segment look a little worse for us. Nebraska minus 7.5. Okay, that just lost by half a point against Northwestern, but oh, God, these other ones got blown out of water, right? Like Oregon minus 33.5 against Wisconsin. That didn't even get halfway there. Under 51.5 in Ole Miss versus Oklahoma. That was blown to smithereens midway through the third quarter. And then under 48.5 for LSU versus Texas A&M. I mean, A&M almost went over themselves. So that was a bad Saturday, Matt. Let's try to get back on the winning side of things. God, I hope you're fading us this season. My God, this week we'll start with over 43.5 for what looked like to be the game of the century before the season started. But now who cares about this game? Over 43.5 for Penn State and Ohio State. So, yeah, that's kind of a lower total. I do enjoy Ohio State's their skill position players. Penn State, surely you could throw up at least 14 points on the board for us, right? So, yeah, over 43.5 for that one. We're going to go with Iowa State at home, minus 3.5 against Arizona State. Like what I've seen from the Cyclones all season, even dating back to week 0 in that very sloppy game. But their defense, I think, has looked the part so far for the remainder of this season. Now, we're going to go to the world's largest cocktail party. Under 50.5 in Florida versus Georgia. Now, Florida, obviously a very turbulent season. It hasn't been linear, but I think that defense has looked solid so far all year. I think Georgia wins the game. I just think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring than 50.5. I've seen both these teams play for this next pick. You've seen both these teams play for the next pick. USC minus 6.5 touchdown favorites on the road at Nebraska. I'm just not sold about anything with Nebraska. Thought about that after we played them. I've thought about that for their next 2-3 games, however many it's been. I just don't think that's a good team. I like USC's athletes. I think they go on the road and they win by more than a touchdown. And guys, this is going to sound really stupid, but hey, we just went 0-5 last week, so why not keep the train chugging? I can't believe I'm going to let these words leave my mouth, but we're taking the Spartans this Saturday. And it's solely because this line movement, you just don't see this all the time. A team just getting 35% of the bets, yet the line's going the other way. So that means that way more than 35% of the money is being bet on a team. Yeah, the Sharps love Michigan State. Obviously, you could tell by my record, I'm not a Sharp this year. I was. We were Sharp the last 2 years. I'd like to feel like that again. So we're going to take Michigan State plus 3.5 over Minnesota. So there you have it, guys. Over 43.5 in Penn State versus Ohio State. Iowa State minus 3.5 against Arizona State. Under 50.5 in Florida versus Georgia. USC minus 6.5 at Nebraska, and then for some reason Michigan State plus 3.5 against Minnesota because I don't know any better. But guys, I hope that you have a great weekend. I know we've done a lot of these shows in an away studio. Next time I see you, we will be back in the home studio sometime Saturday night to recap this game and whatever fallout happens from that. But guys, until next time, love you all. Genuinely mean that. Even though the season has been kind of miserable, just communicating with all you guys, whether it's via email, Twitter, whatever it may be. There's no family better than the Spartan family. So you guys are all the best. Love you all. Take care of yourselves. Mix in the water this weekend and go green.